welcome to the RSP cast. Mark Schofield joining me once again. Mark, it's always a pleasure. We get a chance to do a little Game of Thrones action finally to cover the first rounds of the tourney.
Yeah, very excited about this. We've got our 18 teams, so to speak, stacked in the bracket. We've got them ranked. We've got this all set up, ready to go. I spent way too much time on my Wednesday night instead of watching, Joe Burrow and Jalen Hurts to get ready for the divisional round. Kind of gaming out of my mind how these would work. And we're going to talk about it. I've got a couple of upsets picked here in the first round, not a lot, but a couple. So I think it will be interesting, but excited to dive in.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we'll probably show this on video so that people can see the bracket that we have here. But the matchups that we're gonna break down to begin are the play-in that includes the Waif, the 17th seed versus Syrio Forel, the 18th seed, and then they have the right to play. To match up with Sir Arthur Dayne.
Yeah, good luck.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
So then we've got Brienne Tarth versus Sir Jaime Lannister, Oberyn Martell and Jon Stark, Khal Drogo and Lord Eddard Stark, and then the plan is Tormund and Grey Worm for the opportunity to face Sir Selmy Barristan, and then Bronn versus the Hound, Arya Stark and Daario, the Mountain, and Sir Jorah Mormont. So those are our matchups we will be discussing today. Let's start with Syrio Forel, the 18th seed, versus the Waif, the 17th seed.
Yeah, this one's tough because you know that Syrio is extremely technically sound, first order Bravos. And we've talked about the Waif, that Terminator-like scene of hers where she's like chasing down Arya. I went with Syrio here. I just think, the Waif, yes, she might have some stamina and she might have that like Terminator nature to her, but I can't imagine that scene where we just sort of hear him start fighting, that Syrio is not going to be able to handle this one-on-one situation. Because something tells me in that scene in the first season when we just hear him start fighting as everything's going all crazy and bonkers in King's Landing, that he was going to get taken down by just like one night. I think Syrio's got enough on this. I'm more worried about him in the next round, but I think he handles this round okay.
I agree, because one thing that we also notice is that when we watch the training of Arya, if you notice, the Waif, all the training they have is with those sticks. You don't ever see them fighting with a bladed weapon until the end, when Arya, who's wounded with a bladed weapon, basically makes a mask out of the Waif's face. So I'm thinking that whatever Syrio Forel taught her were principles that she was able to build on, and he couldn't have taught her everything he knew. So in that short period of time as a little kid, he probably just taught her enough for her to build on. So I would imagine that Forel, he's going to be too technically sound. And I also think the Waif isn't, as much as she tries to act like she's emotionless, it was very clear that she fought on emotion in a way where that her emotions can get the better of her. Even if she was kind of like stoic about it, she was clearly rooted in emotion in terms of how she dealt with Arya, and I think Syrio Forel can get the best of her too. So I think we're gonna roll with that, and we'll put Forel right in there, and we'll have him against Dayne. Do we just want to go ahead and profile this one and just move on?
I think this one will be pretty quick.
Yeah.
Like Sir Arthur Dayne rules on. I mean,
yeah. I don't think there's any question there. Is that Forel might be a fun match on one level, but I think that
I think it would be a fantastic match to see. Yeah. I mean, because you might have two of the most technically sound warriors in all of Westeros squaring off.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately, look, for everything that we've talked about, Dayne's going to win that one. And, I don't think it'll be any surprise if eventually Dane advances pretty deep into this tournament. But I think it'll be a fascinating study to watch. I mean, these two technically sound fighters go at it.
Yeah, I think so too, and I think ultimately that's where the matchup would go, where athletic ability, he was a much bigger, stronger man than Forel, So, and I think that maybe Syrio Forel had, you could say that he could upset a number of people on this bracket with his quickness and technical skill, but I think Dane has the quickness and the strength and the technical skill that is just he's one of the few that I think you couldn't really say there's going to be a real upset there.
Yeah, I mean, Syrio got a really tough draw here. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that's for sure. So, all right. So we get the battle of the lovers here: Brienne Tarth and Sir Jaime Lannister. Where do we go from here?
I mean, this is one we kind of got to see, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we got to see this a little bit. I mean, I'm picking Brienne here. I know that Jaime is obviously, youngest member of the Kingsguard, youngest knight, just a tremendously talented fighter. But we saw Brienne throughout the run of this series give some of the best in this bracket everything they had and more. I mean, she basically beat the Hound. I mean, when she squared off with Jaime, she handled herself extremely well. I know there's a thought in the back of my mind that this matchup might be tough for her on some level, both on an emotional and a technical standpoint. But when we did the first show and we sort of talked about our three best in a bunch of different categories, her name kept coming up.
Yeah.
I mean, she's well-rounded. She's got will, she's got stamina, she's got strength. I think Brienne wins this one, but it wasn't an easy call.
Yeah, I would agree. And really, if we were going to say we're doing a tournament with these individuals, it would probably be, even if Jaime had his hand. So if Jaime had his hand, then it wouldn't be a difficult thing for Brienne Tarth because none of what happened actually happened.
Right.
So it wouldn't be difficult for either of them on that level. And also, we could make the argument that Jaime lost that matchup the first time, but after all, he had been a prisoner, kept up in a cage, probably wasn't very well fed, had been beaten
wasn't close
up,
to fighting weight. Yeah,
wasn't ready for a tourney on that level when she got the better of him. So there is that to be said, that maybe Sir Jaime at his best could unseat Brienne of Tarth. So this is one that I would play out both ways. I think it's a 50-50 matchup. It's that close. And yeah. I think that, so I'm agreeing with you. I'm going to go with Brienne, but I think I want to put Jaime underneath it and in parentheses and see what it would be if we were to match them up as him as the alternate winner. You know what I mean?
Okay, that makes sense to me.
Yeah. So we put Brienne right here, and then we we put in parentheses down below it, so that we have our our alternate reality type of version of
that
this
works.
To see if it
I
would
like
change
that.
anything. Okay.
I like that.
Okay. So Oberyn and Jon. For me, this is interesting because you have two supremely technically skilled fighters, but one who really, when you think about, Oberyn uses a number of battle weapons that are up close, whereas Jon's really great with the sword.
Yeah.
And Jon, from what we've seen, Jon has always been the quicker, more technically skilled one of all the people that he's battled, but he's always battled bigger men who are more powerful. And what we've seen is he's had the ability to take punishment, like when he's battled the Then, or when he's battled a White Walker. But he's also he's also had a little bit of help with both of those. Like when he battled the Thenn, didn't the Thenn get shot by? No, the Thenn didn't get shot by anybody. He killed the Thenn.
Yeah.
But I don't know. To me, I think Oberyn's the clear favorite on this one.
Yeah, I actually went with Jon.
Wow, look at that.
Partly because I wanted to set something up crazy in the next round.
Okay.
But I also think this is a matchup of which one's going to make the dumb mistake. Because with Oberyn, when he fought the Mountain, right?
Yeah.
Like he let sort of the emotions get the better of him, didn't finish the job when he had a chance. And we've seen Jon let his emotions get the better of him. Battle of the Bastards, where he just, charged across the field and ended up becoming a meme on Twitter and elsewhere. So I feel like one of these two is going to make the big mistake. Something tells me it might be Oberyn yet again. He's going to be flashy. He's going to be showy. Jon's going to sort of ride him out a little bit. Oberyn might have the upper hand at the start. And then he'll do something silly. He'll take his eyes off the ball for a second and end up losing that way. So that's my rationale for picking Jon, again, with the undercurrent that I'm trying to set something up crazy for the next round.
I could see that. And now, while I don't necessarily agree with, I think Oberyn, we got to remember too, I mean, this was the ultimate vengeance moment of the thing.
Yeah, that layer won't be in it.
Yeah, that won't layer in it. But at the same time, he is cocky. And the one thing about that is Jon's always underestimated. And he seems to always come through when he's underestimated. And Oberyn is cocky, and there's going to be a moment where Oberyn's probably going to be cocky with Jon because he's a showman. And I think that's part of it, is that he likes being a showman. So you know what? Let's roll with Jon Stark. I'm good with that. I think if there's going to be an upset, that's a good one to roll with, though. I think some people are going to hate it.
Yep.
And I'm kind of tempted to put Oberyn as an alternate just to see how that goes.
Yeah, put him as an alternate because.
Just to see how that would play out otherwise, because I think he could go deep, and if he were to, if he could keep his showmanship under control.
Right,
so,
right.
But we're good with that. All right, so Khal Drogo and Ned Stark. So I'm thinking you're thinking Ned Stark if you're set.
That's exactly what I set up.
Why?
I am trying to set up Ned versus Jon because
you are like sadistic. So why? Yeah.
Because I would want, and of course there's the underlying layer of would Jon have the understanding of his true past and everything. How would he feel about that in that moment? How would he feel? Would his feelings, would his judgment, would his emotions in that moment be clouded? Or would he have a deeper appreciation of, everything that Ned had really done for him? How would Ned feel in that moment? I think it's a fascinating thing to think about how those two would feel going up against each other with the full knowledge of everything that had happened in their past and everything that Ned had done, everything that Ned had done for Jon. And I'm fascinated by that potential match.
I can understand that, and I would think to have a tourney that would require friend versus friend, family member versus family member, that there would have to be something so great at stake that when it got to a point where this was, there was a moment where one was going to have to kill the other, that I think that Ned would probably be the one to recognize this is that moment, and Jon, do what you have to do. And I could see where there's even that moment where Ned would probably say, do what I taught you,
Yeah.
And Jon would tearfully probably do it,
I mean, if this is the tournament for the Iron Throne, for example, the winner gets to sit on the Iron Throne, and that might even sway their opinions because both of these two might not want that.
No, they wouldn't. Honestly, that would be one of those where they'd probably die fighting their captors or whoever was enforcing the tournament get out of there. Or,
then take the field of battle against each other for the Iron Throne, which is something that neither of them ever really wanted.
yeah, so it would have to be something like this. Would have to be a situation where like they were all captors, and like in order for there to be a best chance for something larger, they know that they have to face each other, and that one of them finally is like, okay, you have the best chance to help us all, so I kill me. You know, it kind of in the same way where Jon faced the Ranger, you know, when he first went up north and ventured north, and he had to face the Ranger, and the Ranger's like, you know, you're gonna have to kill me so that you can get in good with the wildlings. It's gonna have to be, it would have to be that kind of situation. Yeah. So
I mean, sell me on Khal Drogo then, because I mean, I think between Ned and Khal Drogo, I think Khal Drogo wins. I was just sort of trying to set up that Jon versus Ned thing.
Yeah,
well, I get the sense that you think Drogo is the winner here.
Yeah, I can't do it. Like as good as Ned is, and I think Ned is underrated as obviously from what we saw with how he was able to handle Jaime. I don't think I think Jaime on his best day still has real trouble with Khal Drogo, and probably would not win. I don't think he'd win. You know, if they were able to face each other 10 times, maybe he wins 3 times.
Yeah,
I would think Khal Drogo is just too strong, too quick, too agile, and he is. And I think that Ned would, and I think Jaime's actually kind of scared of the Dothraki, like him. I mean,
Ned,
yeah. But I'm saying Jaime in itself, and I think Jaime and Ned would be a close matchup. And I think that when you have someone like Jaime who's close with Ned in terms of skill level, or at least at some level, you could say they're close in skill. Ned's kind of what's that school in the NCAA tournament that has always been good up in the Northwest? I'm trying to think.
Gonzaga,
yeah. I think Eddard Stark is kind of like the Gonzaga of this tourney.
They win their conference, they win the first round, but they're probably going to get bounced at some point.
Yeah, but like they're good enough to scare everyone, but teams may not know it until they're the team that can go deep like that. But I just think Khal Drogo, in this setting, I think he would dispatch of Eddard fairly quickly, to be honest.
That works.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So we're gonna squash Mark's dreams of a
psychosomatic, psychological nightmare. Yeah, we can get rid of that.
Yeah. I think that one's. I get it, but I think, we don't need that one. All right. So how about Tormund versus Grey Worm?
This one was tough to think about.
Yeah,
because and I come back to the first episode and all the stuff that I read and the stuff that I talked about Grey Worm, and they're such hardened warriors, and to be the leader of that group, like, you have to be something special. So I think Grey Worm wins here. I'm still stunned that he's only a 15 for us.
Yeah,
but I think it's just an attribute of the fact that there are so many other great warriors here that he's sort of slid down the rankings as a result. But I think Grey Worm wins here.
Yeah, I agree. I think Tormund's tough, but he's basically a tough jobber in this tournament,
Yeah.
So he's the guy that maybe was never going to be a main eventer, but he's a fun jobber to face, and I think Grey Worm wins this pretty easily. And also because of the weapon that Grey Worm uses, he's so good. He's going to be good at keeping Tormund off him, and Tormund's the guy that
he's going to be in the body, right?
Yeah, Tormund's got to. If Tormund if you let Tormund get close to you, he might, he's going to do everything possible to win, and he'll let his strength be an issue as well as his ferocity as a warrior to bite, scratch, claw, eye gouge, whatever it is that he needed to do to win. And that's where Grey Worm would be in trouble. So if for instance we were talking about if this tourney was made to be complicated by this is where you could be devious, and we're not doing this, but I just think it's worth exploring it to say is that, say for instance the tourney maker said, with the low seeds versus the high seeds, we're going to put them in a situation that might even the battle in some way. It would be if Grey Worm and Tormund were battling in an environment that forced up close fighting, something where maybe they were in a small enclosure, and that would allow Tormund to cut off the space, and that Grey Worm's range of being able to use his spear and use his weapon was limited. He's banging into the wall everywhere, and
right?
Then maybe Tormund would be even here. But in a wide open arena, yeah, I think Tormund is toast at this point.
Yeah.
So Grey Worm easily gets that. But does that mean that, are we necessarily saying how many times out of 10 do you think Selmy Barristan beats Grey Worm?
I want to say that this is closer than a typical 215.
I agree.
I feel like Grey Worm has the ability, has the courage. I talked about in the first episode how the Unsullied, regularly consume an elixir called the Wine of Courage to deaden their sensitivity to pain. They feel less pain every single year. They what is it here? They're trained in so many different ways of fighting. They have discipline. They fight in the fashion of the old empire. Yes. They're absolutely obedient, utterly loyal, utterly without fear. I feel like he would give Selmy everything he had.
Yeah.
But then I come back to the ending for the two of them in the hallway, right?
Yeah.
Where you're watching that, Selmy ends up sacrificing himself. But you get the feeling that even at that point in his life, at that point in his career, Selmy could have handled that fine. Like, he could have walked out of there if he wanted to. He just felt like he had to sort of sacrifice himself to make sure that everybody else got out okay. I feel like Selmy's the pick here, but this one's closer than I think we would have thought.
Yeah, I think Grey Worm's if we're gonna let's compare these guys to quarterbacks. I think Sir Selmy Barristan is when we see him, he's like Vikings
Brady?
Brett Favre or Brady right now. Okay,
Yeah.
He's that's where he is. Whereas Grey Worm to me is maybe he's
Is Grey Worm like Justin Herbert?
Yeah, I was gonna say like Justin Herbert or Jalen Hurts or someone who's near the top of their game right now, but and then and we look at them, and I think Justin Herbert's a good one, so I would even and so when we look at it from that, or a Joe Burrow or somebody like that, so sure, I'm good with that, but I still think at the end of the day, if we're saying this is where they are right now, then yeah, Grey Worm may win that matchup 4, maybe 5 out of 10 times.
Yeah,
and
I think that's a fair.
And that's quite a thing to say. So if that happens, if we agree that it's maybe he wins 4 or 5 times out of 10, let's put Barristan here, but put Grey Worm as the upset alternate.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah. Because I like the idea of playing this out a second way when we have our chance. And then we're alternate. So we have our upsets, and we can kind of account for that. So, all right, this is fascinating because now we get to Bronn and the Hound. And I know
I want you to tell me why Bronn wins this.
Okay. Well, it's funny because I wasn't going to go that route. But
really?
Yeah.
Because I was just like, yeah, the Hound, he's a 10, but you've really sold me over the past couple of weeks on Bronn.
Yeah, I would say this. This is one of those that I would do the alternate too with it, but I think with Bronn, I think Bronn wins because in this particular format, Bronn will know to stay out of, just like Tormund versus Grey Worm. He'll stay out of the Hound's wheelhouse, which is basically being infighting. He's not going to infight with him, and I think Bronn is tricky enough to like make a move as an infighter, but I don't think he's so tricky that the Hound won't catch it happening, and so that's where Bronn kind of has the advantage over a lot of these guys, is that he'll do something tricky, and and some people might say even cheap, but like that's kind of what you do, and he'll trick him that way. Whereas I think the Hound's seen enough of that stuff to be like, I'm not going with that mess, and you're gonna pay. Like, I'm gonna catch you doing one thing, trying to get inside. I'm gonna pin your arm basically to my side, and then I'm gonna basically rip your face off. And I think that's where the Hound wins 5, maybe 6 times out of 10 in this particular matchup. Whereas if Bronn is also smart enough that if he could make the Hound pissed off from afar, the Hound loses his patience, and we've seen the Hound do stupid shit, like lose his patience with the White Walkers out, way up there and throwing the rocks because he got bored, and he doesn't have the discipline or patience to pay that off. And I think that's where Bronn wins, is that he frustrates the Hound from afar, then the Hound makes a mistake, and then Bronn comes in for the kill. So I'm good with Bronn winning, but I think the Hound also is another alternate that we do here. Is that
I feel, I like that. That makes sense. I feel like this is a weird version of the Rumble in the Jungle. I just have this vision of the Hound tired himself out, chasing Bronn all over the arena, getting tuckered out. Bronn, like every once in a while, just jabbing him with a sword, or slicing at his ankles or something. And Bronn eventually, not Bronn, the Hound just eventually sort of punching himself out, fighting himself out. I feel like that's how this would play.
Yeah, I think that's very possible, and that's but there's another thing that we do forget about the Hound, and he does lead with his toughness, but I do think there is an underrated level of intelligence as a fighter with him. Yeah. And I think that's the, we've seen the better people get the better of him, because like the Hound did get cocky with Brienne, and he was like, I'm a man, you're a woman, I'm going to out-tough you, I'm going to psych you out by doing something that I bet you would never do, and I'm going to grab your sword, cut my hands up, and then I'm going to just roughhouse you, and we're going to go into a gutter war. And he wasn't prepared for her to do the same thing. But he's also, and he does have a cocky side to him. I think that's more and more we do see that, like when he's in the inn and he's like, now part of that was baiting those guys, and that was a psychological thing too. But I think Bronn doesn't fall for that. So yeah. I'm with you. I don't even think. Do we want to do an alternate with that, or do you think this is kind of like, maybe this is more of like 7 times out of 10 Bronn wins this?
I think that's right.
Yeah, I think so too. So yeah, we won't even do an alternate with the Hound. Even though
it was a tough draw for the Hound. Bronn's a survivor. He's going to find a way to win at least this one. I'm worried about Bronn in the next round, but he'll find a way to win this one.
Yeah, because I think if we saw the Hound face Syrio Forel, face either Jaime or Brienne, even Oberyn or Jon.
Yeah. I feel like if the Hound was in the top half of this bracket, he'd probably get to at least the semifinal.
Yeah, yeah. So he's just
It's
he's
just a
that.
tough matchup for him.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so Arya and Daario.
Th- This is the one, like, if you're scheduling this out, this is the primetime game one of these nights. Like,
Yeah,
this is going to be epic. I know Arya obviously has a ton of fans, and her story was one of the foundational storylines of this entire saga. She got a bad draw here because Daario has been fighting in the pits. He has been fighting in tournaments and things like this since he was 12.
yeah,
I mean, he was trained as a pit fighter since the age of 12. During his years as a pit fighter, he learned to fight with several different fighting styles, like a Dothraki Screamer, an Avroshi Priest, a Westerosi Knight. Like, he was built to win this thing. Like, he was put in a lab, Daario was, to win this tournament. Now, will he? I don't think so. Does he at least win this one? I do. I think, like, one-on-one fighting is not Arya's best skill set. Like, she can manage it against some opponents like the Waif, but she's built to, like, stealthily win from shadows.
she's a guerrilla fighter.
Yeah.
And that's exactly, you're right, because when you watch
Here's if the tournament was set up where
in a maze,
these 18 people were just like launched into a maze, who wins? Or like put into a forest or something. It's like whoever's the last person standing wins. Arya might win the entire thing.
yeah,
If it's like dropped into arena 1-1, that's
No.
not her environment.
no, I would agree completely, because even though now here's let's make, because the argument you're making is if you watch her with the Waif, how does she beat the Waif? She pulls the sword out, turns out the light, and now it's a fight in the dark. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's definitely. Let me let the dog go out of my room here. All right, so that lets the that's one. When she beats the Night King, it's from jumping out of a tree,
Yeah.
and then shocking him with the move that she put on Brienne. So a lot of her battles were that way. Now, we'll say when she fought Brienne, you could argue that was a draw. And
Yeah.
that's the one where you go, all right, would Brienne beat Daario? And then that's one way that I look at this too, is how often would Brienne beat Daario? And that's another one where I don't know. That could be more even than the seeding actually sets, or you give Daario the slight advantage here.
Yeah, I just, in prepping for this over the past couple of weeks, like, I've just become such a believer in Daario. Like, I think when we did our seedings, I had him as like a 3 or a 4.
Yeah.
Like, I just feel like this entire exercise was built for him. Like, and it wouldn't surprise me if we get down to the end and he's in like the final 4, at least in my bracket, and I'm making a case like he's going to beat Selmy 1-on-1. Like, I just think, he was put in a lab, built in a lab to win a tournament like this. Again, if it was in a maze, or if it was, like the spoon game you play the first week of college, where it's like, you're assassins and you're, trying to tap people with spoons and you don't know who's coming from where, Daario was probably knocked out in the first round.
So here's another good argument in your favor for this, because you've won me over. Is this Daario faces, who are they? The sons of the
Second Sons.
The Second Sons. So if we recall, we learn about Daario in the TV show, basically of him killing the 3 other Second Sons.
Yeah.
In a fight and taking their heads after a disagreement. Would you, when I think of this and I go, if Arya Stark were put in a room and had to take on the 3 Second Sons at once, would she walk out of that tent? And I think the answer would be no.
No,
I don't think
so.
Not without sneaking up on them. Not if them drawing their swords on her. I don't think she wins more than maybe 1 out of 10 times, and it would have to be, or 2, because it would have to be due to some fluke or mistake or something crazy. Whereas with Daario, I think he probably won that. He would have won that battle, 6 to 7 out of 10 times.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think we even need an alternate here, and it looks like an upset, but I don't think it really is. I think you're right.
I think it's one of those where, like, the 6 is like a major conference, team that, finished 3rd or 4th in the conference.
An SEC basketball team.
Yeah, yeah. And the 11 is like the Princeton or, one of these smaller mid-majors that, like, they went like 30-2, and they're just like a well-rounded team that's like built to break you down a couple of different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that makes total sense. Or like Daario's Memphis with Penny Hardaway at his prime.
Right. Yeah, where it's like they're going to run some big teams out of the tournament in a hurry.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. The Mountain versus Sir Jorah.
Thanks for coming, Jorah. It was fun. Hope you enjoyed the swag bag and all the fun stuff you got for being a member of the tournament. Yeah, thanks for playing. There's no way, to use the sort of analogy we've talked about a couple of times, maybe this is like the 1980 U.S. hockey team, right? We just showed our son Miracle a couple of nights ago, like maybe last weekend, because he had never seen it before. And we had gone to a hockey game over the holidays, and he was kind of getting into hockey. And, there's the Herb Brooks, Kurt Russell speech, we play them 10 times, they might win 9, but not tonight, not this night. I don't even think they have that. There's no Micah Ruzioni in Jorah's back pocket. There's no Jim Craig in Jorah's back pocket.
Yeah, the best thing he's got in his back pocket might be sand, or maybe some poison.
It's the pocket sand fight for Jorah.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's pulling that off either.
No, I don't think so either. I just think that I don't think he can get close enough to the mountain to do any damage. This is less probable than his niece beating a zombie troll. I would say she had better chance of winning that same matchup and dying in the process, probably 4 out of 10 times. And that's probably twice as many opportunities than Jorah has. I think Jorah, just for the sake that respecting his game, maybe he wins 2 out of 10 times. And I think I'm being very generous by saying that.
Yeah.
So, we'll put the mountain right here. All right. So this is how we've got it set up for next time. We have the mountain and Daario.
By the way,
that
is the match of the quarterfinals.
Yeah.
That is it. And I have already written the argument as to who I'm picking in that one.
Yeah, so I think we know we're going to expect that upset right there. We're going to see the argument for that. I'm going to have to figure that one out and see if I can agree with it. We got Bronn versus Sir Selmy Barristan, and then we have the alternate of him facing Grey Worm, just to see how that would play out. And what's fascinating is I wouldn't be surprised if either one. Won't go too far in, but I wouldn't be surprised if either one of the ones that passed out of the Barristan Grey Worm beat Bronn. I think both of them are set up to be able to handle Bronn.
Bronn was a tough, it was a tough battle for him to get out of the first round. We've talked a lot about Bronn, how much we like him, but he's got a tough road ahead of him.
Yeah, I think this is a tough matchup for him. If you put Bronn, I think I won't say if you put Bronn in the other bracket. If you put Bronn maybe against Jon Stark, maybe against Khal Drogo, because he's crafty, and I think he's a little craftier than Khal Drogo. I don't want to say Drogo's a dumb brute, but he does lead with his physicality to the extent that he could get overconfident. And I think that's where Khal Drogo's Achilles heel is, and where you could have made the case for Eddard Stark. But I don't think Eddard Stark at this stage of his powers necessarily would have. I don't know. Maybe Eddard Stark's better now at the stage of his powers. I'm starting to understand why you have a Stark versus Stark draw here with this. but I still think Drogo is.
I mean, Drogo's probably better.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably the better call. But the Stark versus Stark thing just really intrigued me.
Yeah, so that's going to be fascinating seeing Jon. Can Jon draw out the part in Drogo where Drogo gets overconfident and thinks he's like basically busting up Jon, and then Jon is able to come in from an angle and just take him out with one fell swoop. That's going to be the kind of thought there. And then, Brienne and Arthur Dayne, I mean, on one hand, I think that Brienne could make this a better fight than we expect. I just don't know if it means it's a winning fight. That's a tough one to say.
Yeah. I mean, she might be able to take him, like, if you think about like a 15-round boxing match.
Yeah.
She might take him the distance, might be like Rocky 1, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's ever taken Apollo the distance. Nobody's ever taken Arthur Dayne this. She might do that, but I don't think she's winning.
Yeah, I think she'd have to disable him on a freak situation early and then outlast him for that to happen. Now, but what's interesting is the alternate, I think while part of me thinks Jaime would piss his pants having to face Arthur Dayne on one level, Jaime's also capable of doing kind of the cheap, I don't want to say cheap, doing the, he's the one that I would say could DeAndre Hopkins, like, Sir Arthur Dayne's Jalen Ramsey kind of thing, where he could do the thing that you would call cheating, but raise it to an art form where he figures out a way to get the better of Dayne.
That's why I think like a Bronn Sir Arthur Dayne matchup would have been fascinating to think about.
Yes. I think
because I think Bronn will be able to pull that off. I think Jaime could try that, but might not be able to pull it off.
Yeah,
because deep down he's like too much of a man of honor. Like,
yes,
I don't know if he could do that. Now maybe look, we know he had his flaws, so maybe he'd be able to pull that off. But I just don't know if he could.
Yeah, and Jaime was more honorable in battle than he was. His battle,
right. the
scene
way where he could have ended Ned at the start, but then like, no, I'm not going to beat you with a lance sticking out of your thigh.
Yeah, and you could see how he talked about Brienne. Everything was technique, and he revered how people fought, and you could see the truest sense of who he was as a fighter. And
he wouldn't want to beat Dayne by cheating. He wouldn't want to do that.
I don't think it would be in him to do. I would agree. Whereas Bronn would do it in a hot second.
I don't care.
Yeah, Bronn. If Bronn was like, what is this thing? Oh, it's a what is this thing that was dropped into the future by aliens from an alternate dimension? It's a stun gun. He'd pick that thing up in a minute and use that thing, It's
like the scene from like Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Yeah.
Where, the swordsman's like sweating, Indiana's just like, whatever, and he shoots him. Like, that's Bronn. Like, that's what he'd do.
Bronn is the Indiana Jones of this entire thing. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That would make total sense. So there we have it. Dayne, Brienne, Jon, Khal Drogo, Sir Selmy and Grey Worm, Bronn and Daario. Bronn and Sir Selmy, and either Bronn and Grey Worm, and then Daario and the Mountain.
I'm going to spend 40 minutes talking about Daario versus the Mountain.
Wow.
I can tell you that right now.
Well, listen, I mean, we're going to be looking forward to this. I know we've had a number of people who've really been enjoying this thus far, and we hope that you have. And I think down the line we're going to, we may actually do some quarterback talk around here.
Well, we might do that at some point, but I mean, who needs that?
Yeah, who needs that right now? That's right.
Yeah.
So, I'll just say this: looking at this thing right here, I'm gonna say that Anthony Richardson is the Daario of the draft class. That's where
I can't wait to talk about him.
Yeah, I can't wait either.
It's gonna be fun.
Yeah. So On that end, of course, you can find Mark Schofield at Mark Schofield on Twitter. You can find him at SBNation, where he's doing awesome work as always. And if you like Formula One, well, you can do that too. You're getting some fun with that. But yeah, we're here for the football at this channel, and a little bit of the Game of Thrones, which we're having fun. And if listen, if you like the Anthony Richardson breakdown I did. If you like the Twitter breakdowns I'm doing basically in the middle of the night right now on running backs, and you want to see more of that kind of stuff, head over to Matt Waldman's RSP, mattwaldmanrsp.com, or Matt Waldman's RSP Film Room on YouTube, and check that stuff out. And if you know that you're like, listen, I need a draft guide, I need one that's not going to do like
the RSP.
Do the big media take. It's going to give you some thoughts on players that you might see a guy like Brock Purdy ranked over Desmond Ridder and Malik Willis, and think that guy's nuts for doing that. Well, that's usually how I get my customers at first, is they think I'm an idiot, and then eventually go, I need to buy this guy's work. So that's kind of what happens with the RSP. It's in its 18th year. We're heading into year 18. And you can get it at mattwaldmanrsp.com or mattwaldmanrsp.com. You get the pre-draft and post-draft. You get a newsletter from June through December, and rankings. I take you through my entire process. It's transparent. I try to do it in an entertaining way. It's all bookmarked. So the tome that my wife has gotten this idea that because we're approaching year 20, she's asked me to send her all the RSPs, and she's actually binding them. She's going to make books out of them, like with the leather and the gold leaf kind of stuff, and do all that. I said, you realize that you're basically going to get, once you get past 2006, which was only a few hundred pages long, or the 2007 one, that once you start getting into about 2009 through about 2015, that like you could be charged with like assault with a deadly weapon with the size of some of these books.
Got some heft to them.
Yeah, you're gonna have some tomes here, And she's like, yeah, I'm looking forward to doing this. So even though some of these are tomes, and last year's was 900 pages, they are bookmarked for ease of use. They do have some evergreen value, at least, maybe not evergreen, but I'd say 3 to 4 years, sometimes maybe even 5 years. Some of these hold up pretty well, especially for redrafts where you're looking at free agents or guys that, big media say, I've never even heard of this guy. Where did he come from? And suddenly you're thinking about adding these guys to your waiver wire. You're going to get in-depth profiles on these guys that help you not only with your rookie drafts when you pick Chris Olave or Christian Watson early on, and say, I'm gonna trust this guy and see how these guys go, and they turn out to be helpful to you in your fantasy leagues, but also later round picks that you can pick off the waiver wire for your matchups and get good plays out of them that you wouldn't have expected. The Isaiah Pacheco's, guys like that. So you can get that at mattwaldman.com. Thanks again for listening, and we will see you next time.